Your support matters. With 90% of our viewers yet to subscribe, we need your help to keep creating engaging content. Please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Let us know where you're watching from and leave your city in the comments below. I always believed that if love was built on trust, it could withstand anything. I thought I had the perfect marriage. One grounded in faith, commitment, and unwavering devotion. For years, I never doubted my husband, my best friend, my everything. We shared everything, from our hopes to our dreams, and every moment seemed perfect. But the moment the truth came to light, the illusion shattered like glass, and everything I thought I knew about my life and my marriage crumbled into 1,000 irreparable pieces. Let me take you back to where it all began. 7 years ago, I met Daniel. From the moment we connected, it felt like fate had written our story long before we were born. We shared many similarities, both raised in devout Christian homes in the Midwest, where Sundays meant church, family meant everything, and faith was the foundation of our lives. We spoke the same language of love, one that valued commitment, honesty, and loyalty above all else. Back then, I was building my career as a marketing consultant, while Daniel thrived as an engineer. We both had our ambitions, but our shared values always held us together. When we got engaged, my parents gifted us a 3-bedroom house, believing that wealth should be shared during our lives rather than after death. It was a blessing beyond words. And we vowed to fill that house with love, laughter, and a family of our own. 5 years ago, we sealed our vows in a beautiful ceremony, promising to stand by each other through every storm, every triumph, and every season of change. For the longest time, we kept that promise. Our love was the kind that made people envious, effortless, deep, and unbreakable, or so I thought. Then, 2 years ago, our lives became even more complete when we welcomed our twin daughters. 2 perfect little girls with golden curls and bright, curious eyes from the moment they were born. Our priorities shifted. Late-night conversations about dreams and ambitions turned into early morning routines of bottle feedings and lamps and lullabies. Parenthood was exhausting, but we managed. Daniel and I worked as a team, carrying each other through sleepless nights and the ever-changing responsibilities of raising children. On the outside, our life may have seemed routine, but for me, it was everything I had ever wanted. We spent weekends at home, enjoying quiet dinners and movie nights, only venturing out for the occasional grocery run. We didn't need grand social events or extravagant outings. We were content with our simple life, built on love, trust, and faith. Daniel was the kind of husband who never made me doubt for a second that I was his priority. He was affectionate, always finding ways to hold my hand, kiss my forehead, or wrap his arms around me when I least expected it. And I adored him for it. We shared everything. Our fears, our dreams, our worries. There were no secrets between us. At least, that's what I believed. But everything changed the night he left for that business trip. It was an ordinary evening when Daniel received an unexpected phone call. He'd been told his presence was needed at a 3-day event in Atlanta. Several of his colleagues had fallen ill, and his company needed him to step in. He tried to get out of it, but there was no way around it. They needed him, and he had to go. I remember the look on his face as he packed his suitcase that night. There was a sadness in his eyes, something I hadn't seen before. "I hate this," he murmured, shaking his head. "I don't want to leave you and the girls for 3 days. I even tried calling my boss again, but they won't budge." I smiled reassuringly, stepping forward to adjust his tie. "We'll be fine. It's just a few days. We'll miss you, but we support you. He kissed my forehead and pulled me into his arms. I don't deserve you, he said softly. I laughed, brushing him off gently. Of course you do. I had no idea that this would be the last time I looked at him the same way. The first night without Daniel was uneventful. I spent the evening with the girls, made a dinner, and tucked them into bed. We exchanged a few good night texts, and I went to sleep, missing him, but comforted by the thought that he would be home soon. The second night, however, would be a different story. Around 9:00 p.m., I received a message from Ryan, one of our longtime friends. He worked in cybersecurity and was attending a separate conference in Atlanta that same weekend. Ryan texted, "Hey, how's your weekend going? I'm having dinner with some colleagues. Guess who's sitting across the table from me?" I smiled at the message and responded casually, "Daniel's at his trade show, so I'm just home with the girls." "You're at the security event, right?" Ryan replied, "Yeah. You said that Daniel's at an exhibition, right? Do you know which one?" Something about the question made me pause. I replied, "Yeah, it's in Atlanta this week. I don't remember the exact name, but his company is presenting at the convention center." What? There was a long pause before Ryan replied, "A strange, uneasy feeling settled in my stomach." A minute later, my phone buzzed again. Ryan sent 3 attachments, 2 photos and a short video. I hesitated before opening them, my heart racing. The first photo was of Daniel, but not the way I had ever seen him before. He was sitting at a dimly lit restaurant, leaning close to a woman. She was breathtaking, long, dark hair, wearing a dress that clung to her curves in a way I never would have imagined him approving of. They were laughing, their hands casually touching, their eyes locked on one another. The second photo sent my heart into free fall. It was a close-up shot. Her hand was resting on his arm, her lips inches from his ear, as she whispered something to him. The way he was looking at her made my stomach twist violently. I clicked on the video next, my hands shaking the moment it started. I couldn't breathe. Daniel was kissing her forehead. No, not just a friendly kiss. It was intimate, passionate. His hands were on her waist, pulling her closer, while hers were tangled in his hair, as though they were completely unaware of the world around them. I stared at the screen, my vision blurring. This couldn't be real. I wanted to believe it wasn't, but it was. And the worst part, Daniel had seen my name on his phone and ignored me. My hands trembled as I stared at my phone, the images and video flashing before my eyes over and over. My heart pounded so hard, I could feel it in my throat. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This wasn't a moment of weakness or a mistake. Daniel, the man I trusted with everything, was with another woman. Not just any woman, but someone he was physically affectionate with. Someone he was sharing intimate moments with. I didn't want to believe it. I couldn't. I dialed Daniel's number, my fingers shaking as I pressed the green call button. It rang once, twice, and then it went straight to voicemail. I felt the weight of the betrayal settle into my chest like an iron ball. I forced my voice to remain steady as I left a message. "Hey, sweetheart, just wanted to check in. Hope you're having a good time. Call me when you can. I love you." I hung up, still in disbelief. My hands were clammy, and I felt like I was suffocating. Another message from Ryan popped up on my phone, causing me to jump. "Are you okay?" I swallowed hard, trying to hold it together. "Where is he right now?" Ryan's response sent chills down my spine. Still at the table with her, I dialed Daniel's number again. And again, it went straight to voicemail. My mind raced. What was happening? Why wasn't he answering? He had always answered my calls. Always, if he was busy. He'd send a quick text to let me know. But now, nothing. I called Ryan back. He answered immediately. Hey, are you okay? I don't know, I whispered, my voice shaky. I don't know what to think anymore. Ryan paused for a moment before speaking gently. I don't want to be the one to tell you this, but I can't keep watching him with her. You deserve to know the truth. I can stay here and keep an eye on them if you want. I squeezed my eyes shut, trying to fight back the tears. No, don't waste your night on this. I just need to think. Ryan's voice softened. I'm here if you need anything. I hung up, sitting in silence. The pain in my chest was unbearable. Everything felt like it was crumbling. I wanted to believe there was some innocent explanation that maybe I was overreacting. But deep down, I knew I had seen the photos. I had seen the video. The truth was undeniable. Daniel was betraying me. And for the first time in our marriage, I didn't know who he was anymore. That night, I barely slept. Every moment of our life together flashed through my mind. The happy memories now tainted by the painful reality I couldn't escape. Had I missed the signs? Had I been so consumed with being a mother, so wrapped up in our family life, that I hadn't noticed him slipping away from me? When the girls woke up the next morning, I forced myself to be present for them. They were too young to understand, and I didn't want them to feel the tension in the air. I made breakfast, smiled through the ache in my chest, and did my best to act like nothing was wrong. But inside, I was falling apart. I checked my phone one last time. No message from Daniel. No call. No explanation. The silence was deafening. Around noon, I couldn't take it anymore. I picked up my phone and dialed his number again. It rang, and then went to voicemail once more. I clenched my jaw, my grip tightening on the phone. This wasn't normal. Daniel always answered. If he was busy, he would at least send a quick text. Frustration and anger surged through me as I sent a message. Hey, I tried calling. Is everything okay? Minutes passed. An hour. Still nothing. That's when the anger started to boil beneath my skin. I opened the pictures Ryan had sent me, again, staring at them with a mix of disbelief and fury. I couldn't let it go. I had to know the truth. I deserved the truth. Later that evening, Daniel finally called me. When I saw his name on the screen, my pulse raced. My hands trembled as I answered. Hello. His voice was casual. Too casual. Hey, sweetheart. Sorry, I've been so busy. How are you and the girls? I felt my stomach churn. How could he sound so normal? Like nothing had happened. Like he hadn't been living a double life. I swallowed hard. We're fine. How's the trip? There was a slight pause before he answered. Good. Just work. You know how it is. Lies. I tightened my grip on the phone. Where are you right now? In my hotel room, he said effortlessly. Just getting ready for bed. That's when Ryan sent me another picture. I opened it immediately, and my heart sank. Daniel wasn't in a hotel room. He was at a bar. With her. I inhaled sharply. Tell me the truth. Daniel, are you alone right now? There was a brief hesitation, just a flicker, but I noticed it. Of course, I am. Why would you even ask that? I closed my eyes, fighting the nausea rising in my stomach. He was lying, and I had the proof. The air felt thick, suffocating. I had spent the last 24 hours drowning in pain, in confusion, in disbelief. And here he was, pretending everything was fine, lying straight to my face. Where are you right now? I asked again, my voice steady but sharp. Daniel hesitated for just a moment. I'm in my hotel room. Why? No, you're not, I replied coldly. You're at a bar with her. I heard the panic in his voice, the edge in his words. That's not what it looks like. Just trust me, okay? But I couldn't trust him anymore. I had seen the pictures. I had seen the video. And now I needed answers. Who is she? I demanded. There was another pause. He sighed. Her name is Megan. Megan. Her name stung like a slap to my face. This wasn't some one-time mistake. This wasn't an innocent encounter. He had been seeing her for months, living a double life while pretending everything was fine at home. How long? I forced the question out, my voice tight with emotion. A few months, he admitted, his voice barely a whisper. A few months. That meant this wasn't just a one-time slip-up. This was an ongoing affair. Daniel had been coming home to me, kissing me, holding our daughters, while all along he was betraying us with someone else. I felt my stomach turn. Why? I asked, my voice breaking. Why would you do this? He looked away, unable to meet my gaze. I don't know. Things changed after the girls were born. You were so focused on them, and I felt like I wasn't important anymore. His words hit me like a physical blow. So instead of talking to me, instead of telling me how you felt, you chose to cheat, I whispered, my voice shaking with anger. He lowered his head, his face filled with guilt. I didn't plan for it to happen. I let out a bitter laugh. You didn't plan for it. I shook my head. You didn't accidentally fall into this. Daniel, you made a choice. I know, he said, his voice cracking. I messed up. I know. Do you love her? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. He hesitated. His silence was deafening. Finally, he shook his head. No, I don't. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Then, what does that make me? Daniel, the woman you love, but still betrayed, the one you said you'd spend the rest of your life with. He didn't answer. Instead, he stared at me, his expression filled with regret. The silence between us grew heavy. Finally, I spoke, my voice firm. What now? He ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. I don't want to lose you. I let out a hollow laugh. You already did. Daniel looked as though he'd been struck. Can we work through this? He asked softly. I stared at him, the weight of everything we had built together pressing down on me. Could we work through this? Could I ever trust him again? The answer was clear, even if I didn't want to admit it. No, I whispered. I can't look at you the same way again. Daniel exhaled sharply, his fists clenching at his sides. So that's it. I nodded, finally feeling a sense of clarity. That's it. For a moment, he didn't move. He just stood there, realizing the weight of his choices. But I wasn't the woman who would beg him to stay. I had too much self-respect for that. I deserved better. My daughters deserved better. And for the first time in weeks, I felt free. The house was eerily silent as Daniel stood in front of me, his face pale with the realization of what had just happened. I had made my choice. He had made his, and now we were both facing the consequences. The life we had built together, everything we had shared, was over. It felt like a dream I had woken up from, only to find that nothing was the same. Daniel didn't fight me. He didn't plead, didn't beg for a second chance. He just stood there, his eyes filled with a sorrow that I couldn't bring myself to pity. He had broken my trust, and no amount of guilt could undo that. There was no turning back. He went upstairs to pack a bag. I stayed in the kitchen, gripping the edge of the counter, trying to steady my breathing. I could feel my heart pounding, the weight of the decision I had made heavy on my chest. But even with all the pain, there was a small sense of relief. The choice had been made. I wasn't going to be the woman who stayed in a broken marriage out of fear, out of the hope that things might get better. This was my moment to finally let go. I heard the soft creak of the stairs as Daniel came back downstairs, a duffel bag slung over his shoulder. He stopped in front of the door, hesitating, as if there was something he wanted to say. I stood there, not sure if I should say anything, not sure if there was anything left to say. For a moment, I thought he might beg, plead for one last chance. But instead, he sighed deeply, a sound full of resignation. I'm sorry, he said quietly. I nodded, my throat tight. Me too. And just like that, he was gone. The door closed behind him, leaving me standing there in the silence of our home, a silence that was both devastating and freeing. The weight of what had just happened settled in. But it wasn't the crushing weight of grief I had expected. It was a weight that made me realize that I was no longer carrying the burden of a lie. That night, as I lay in bed, the bed we had once shared, I felt a strange calm. It wasn't peace, but it was something close to it. I had chosen to stand up for myself, to put an end to the life I had been living in a dream, a life that wasn't real anymore. I had done it for me, for my daughters, and for the future we deserved. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of small footsteps running down the hallway. I barely had time to sit up before Lily and Emma climbed into bed with me, their sleepy faces filled with innocent curiosity. "Where's Daddy?" Lily asked, rubbing her eyes. I swallowed hard, wrapping my arms around them. "He's going to stay somewhere else for a little while," I said gently, trying to keep my voice steady. Emma frowned, her little brow furrowing. "Why?" I forced a smile, doing my best to sound normal. Sometimes grown-ups need space to figure things out. Lily's lips wobbled, and I felt my heart crack. Did we do something wrong? I pulled them both closer, feeling their warmth against me. "No, sweetheart. This is not your fault. Mommy and Daddy love you so much. That will never change." They didn't fully understand. How could they? But I knew that in time they would. This was just the beginning of a long, difficult journey, one where I would have to be strong for them and for myself. Daniel and he agreed on a visitation schedule for the girls. He would see them regularly, and I would continue to be the mother they deserved. But every night, when the house grew quiet and I was alone, the emotions would hit me like a tidal wave. Grief, anger, relief. It was a strange mix, and some nights I wasn't sure which emotion was winning, but there was something else that began to grow inside me too. Hope. A few weeks later, I was making dinner when my phone buzzed. I looked at the screen, hesitating for a moment before answering. It was Ryan. "Hey," I said cautiously. "Hey," he replied, his voice softer than usual. "How are you holding up?" I exhaled, stirring the pasta in the pot. "Some days are easier than others." "That makes sense," he said, pausing. "I just wanted to check in and also say I'm sorry for how you found out." I frowned, leaning against the counter. "It wasn't your fault, Ryan. If anything, I'm grateful. At least now I know the truth." There was a brief silence on the other end of the line. "If you ever need to talk, I'm here. You know that." A small warmth spread through my chest. Ryan had always been there for me, even through all the turmoil. And now, even after everything, he still cared. "Thank you," I murmured, my voice thick with emotion. We ended the call shortly after, and for the first time in weeks, I felt something I hadn't expected. Hope. Maybe not for love, not yet, but for healing, for a fresh start, for the life I deserved. I had been living in the shadow of betrayal, but now I was stepping into the light. I wasn't sure where the road would take me, but I knew that I was no longer alone. I had my girls, I had my strength, and most importantly, I had the future ahead of me, one that was mine to shape. The pain would never fully go away, but I had learned something crucial. Life wasn't about holding on to something that was broken. It was about learning to let go, to rebuild, and to move forward. And with that, I closed the door on the past and opened the door to my future. The end of one chapter marked the beginning of another.